Welcome to Thrive in the Mess. I'm your host, Lisa Hutchcraft Whitmer. I have a wonderful friend, Cristina, who's with me today. So happy to have you here. I know I'm on the road and recording, but hey, if we have the stuff, we'll go wherever and record stories. So we're in the middle of New York City, the heart of Manhattan today. And today we're going to talk a little bit about when your child has hope and you don't yet. And Cristina, we're going to kind of rewind, just kind of look a little bit at how your life growing up and all. And then we're going to fast forward to your daughters found some hope in life and you didn't have that. But let's start kind of, what do you want to share about your background? And I also want to say, I know you are a principal in a school in New York City. I'm thrilled there's actually a holiday today, the day we're recording. Yes. So I'm like, she's not going to be available, but thrilled that you can join us. So I know you are very accomplished. You've worked very hard. But take us back to where you grew up, kind of your years growing up and all. And
so I was born in Ecuador, and my story begins there pretty much. I think of the title, Thrive in the Mess. Although I was a child, I didn't know there was a mess in my family. Wow. So, my dad left my mom and my older brother when I was about 2 years old. And mom, I lived in my grandmother's house, so my grandma said to her, you have to go to America and start a new life. This is not working out. And we had a great aunt already here who came in 1946. So it was a very scary feeling for her to leave her children. But grandma was going to be there for us to raise her until, she can get us back here in New York. And I stayed with my grandmother for 7 years. For 7 years.
Still in Ecuador?
In Ecuador, yeah.
Right.
I was 3. I came to America when I was 7. I did not know who was my mom. Forgot what she looked like. So I have very fond memories of my grandmother. Came to New York to meet my mom in 1974 with my brother. And I see a mom who was expecting with her husband, my stepdad, and I knew who was my dad. So I come to this okay, what a change, what a challenge, right? At the airport, John F. Kennedy, I said goodbye to my grandma, who's been like my mom for 7 years, right? Because I was born in her house with my mom. And it was tough during the first month. I adapted into a new country, a new family, and a new school. Didn't speak a word of English.
Oh my goodness!
So
wow, talk about a mess.
Yeah, it was a
lot of change
of that mess. So my mom and my maternal side of the family, I said maternal side of the family, they're all Catholic. Born and raised, that baptism confirmation. My biological dad, I find out that my grandmother was a devout Christian in Ecuador. So my father's side she was Christian. Wow. And I just find out that when my mom and my dad were together, my grandma had asked, can I take Cristina to church? So my mom was, okay, take her, she's Catholic, but a cold Catholic, just take her. So when she came back and said, my granddaughter's going to be a Christian one day. She said, and my mom looked at her like, I don't know about that, right?
Right.
And she says to me, okay, she was saying, hallelujah. That was clapping. I was like 2 years old. And when I heard the story, I said, oh my God, my grandmother praised at me even back then. So back again, New York, Catholic. We were Catholic for Easter Sunday, Palm Sunday, Easter Sunday. And the rest, it was like party every weekend, a lot of drinking, right? I grew up.
And you're still a child.
I'm still
teenage?
7 years old.
Still young. Okay.
7 years old. Our family, as immigrant family, were very transient. I remember one year I went to 3 different schools until my stepdad was hired as a super in Williamsburg. Well, not the Williamsburg that is known now. It was it was very chaotic. It was impoverished.
You don't even think about that. I don't think about that really with someone who comes to the States as an immigrant, and just the transients just moving around so much. And already you're trying to adjust to a new culture, learn the language, the school. How do you make friendships then? If you're moving around, and wow, and the relationship, like your grandma's back in Ecuador, who's been your lifeline, so wow. Okay, so keep going.
That makes sense of that. And as an educator, I really empathize for my families who are trans. So I see myself in my families.
Yeah.
I saw they going through what I went through. So God used me in a way where I could give them words of encouragement.
Did you say your dad?
No, I saw my dad within after, when I was 14. I went back to visit from 7 to 14.
Wow.
And then I saw him again when my brother passed away in 1997. And we keep in touch though. We have a good
Wow.
WhatsApp call with him.
After all that, even the mess, there's lots of strands in your story, and even that strand of connecting with your dad and all that. So
I could have be so resentful and be hateful towards him. But Lisa, I gotta tell you, during the 7 years that even he walked away from my mom's life, but he never walked away from me. And that made a difference. Like he would pick me up when we were on break, take me to his new home in the Andes. So I have these lovely memories of going to the countryside, but it lasted for 7 years, right? That love was only for 7 years, right? And then until come to America, it was very challenging being a stepchild.
Right.
There were times I felt like I was a stepchild. There were times my stepdad loves me like his daughter. And deep inside, I know knowing him for 51 years, I know he loves me as his daughter. He raised me as his daughter. But I always wish I had my dad.
Right. That's kind of an inbuilt longing I think everyone has.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I got to tell you, we were a dysfunctional family, right? My stepdad worked 2 jobs. He was, a good provider, right? He was a super in the daytime. He was a cleaner in the evening, actually, not too far away from here.
Being superintendent. I hear that a lot.
Yeah, the building.
Superintendent of the building. Yeah. So that helps because you have housing, even with that, don't you?
Right.
Yeah, wow.
And the income that would come along.
Right.
And then in the evening, he went to Battery Park City, and he would clean offices. For 30 years, he did that.
Wow.
So he was gone, providing for us. And weekends he drank, right? It was party, and my mom was the cook. She was a great cook. So it was party, and it was, drinking. Families living drunk,
right?
Driving drunk. And all the children would gather, and they would be staying late. And it was just part of every other weekend, a part of our life. And then for Easter Sunday or Palm Sunday, we'll go to church.
Right.
But there was no...
What did you think about when, you visited church? Was it
I got to tell you, I went to public schools from first grade until 3rd grade. When I moved to Williamsburg, at that time in 1975, 76, schools were really not appropriate, safe for children. So I remember one classmate took a little pocket knife. He said to me, "If you don't let me your crayons, I'm going to use this on you." 3rd grade.
Wow. That's another part in the city, isn't it?
Yes. Brooklyn.
Right. Brooklyn. Okay.
Brooklyn.
Right.
And I told my parents, and they said, "Don't worry, we're going to put you in Catholic school." Because Catholic schools back then were safer and there's discipline.
Oh, right.
It was somewhat because of religious,
right.
belief.
They wanted safety for their, right. After the knife incident, I don't blame them.
It was okay, you need to go there.
Golly.
And they sacrificed, they paid tuition, but we felt safe. And I went to Catholic school from 4th grade until 8th grade, and then I went to Catholic high school. So my experience with church and religion was through the school. So this is what they talking about being forceful. So the nuns was, okay, 4th grade, this Sunday is the 4th grade classes. You have to go to church. And if you don't show up, I will be there with a note. You're absent, you get it I shall come to church. So it was punitive. So you had to go, otherwise you had the homework.
Not really self-motivated.
No.
To go.
So you're forced to,
Right.
So
right.
Church or religion was it's punitive. You have to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, you go in, it was a virtual, you kneel, you do the sign of the cross, you sing, the songs. If you know the songs, you go home. Then you step out of the church door, and then you go back into like potty mouth, like you name it, right? So it was everything was forgotten now.
What's being changed by being there during that time? If you're leaving and there's potty mouth and all the things.
You pies are there, my father should be quiet. Priest is talking. For that right moment, you have to respect the priest. You don't fall asleep in church. You have to be attentive. And then you step out and back to the old way. So I never heard the word. I never felt the spirit of God like talking to me when I started going to a Christian church. Lisa, there were times that I said, I wish I could run away.
Wow.
And I said, I can't, because I don't have the place to go.
That's what I was going to ask. Where to?
Right, where to?
Right.
My dad is 1,000 miles away. So I said, one thing I thank my stepdad, that he always fostered education. He always said to me, you have to get an education where you can use your brains and not your hands. Because he had, and not to attack or offend people who are in the cleaning services. But
Well, your stepdad did that.
He did that for a living. He had an income. He had a health insurance.
Yeah.
But he said you would have better opportunities than we had in America. So whenever we have like a math was my weakness, he says you cannot get an 80. So he was always like on top. You have no boyfriends. You cannot have no boyfriends. The boyfriends are your books.
Wow.
So he wouldn't force that.
No. Wow, that's a little rough. No boyfriend's books?
Yeah, just the books. And then I said to him, can I have a boyfriend when I'm 18? No, when you're 30. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
We joke about things like that, but I don't think he was joking.
No, he was serious. And then I said, I might as well be a nun, right? Because I might as well. And I actually wanted to be a nun at one point, Lisa.
Wow.
In high school, I went to visit a convent. And when I noticed that some of the nuns were drinking wine, I said, I thought they were pieing. I said, I want to be a nun. So anyway, so he forced me.
We almost were with no boyfriend, so
I had no choice but to study, and he really pushed me. And I said to myself, I don't want to be like my mom, who was submissive and who accepted the abuse, and the verbal abuse, and the drunk.
Another strand of mess.
Right. Yeah, that's another strand of mess. Right. So I became feminist. And I was like, oh, women can do everything, women have brains. And that propelled me to go to school and get a degree, get an education, because that was my passport to out of the
other opportunities. So your education then, you obviously did college.
Yes.
You did, and you're an administrator.
And I did a certificate program to become an administrator.
Wow. And now you're helping others get their education. Fast forward, you have a family. And start with some of that.
So I, during that hot mess in my 20s, I met Mr. Flores. He was my boyfriend. I was 20, he was 23.
So you did get a boyfriend?
Yeah, I did. I did. And boy, my stepdad, when I brought him home, like the first day, he had like this mean look, He didn't talk to him. My husband says, oh God, I want to really like run out. I said, maybe, I don't think it's worth it the day, the looks. But he stuck around. And so my
husband probably has that for your children too now, though. It's a learned father thing.
So he's very protective, because now we married. And he says, boy, I remember going in and seeing sometimes like beer can bottles on the floor. And I said, you remember? Oh my God, I thought you would pick up when you would come in. Right. So
when he visited
you didn't visit my home.
Right.
So it was like, and you didn't walk away. And it was no. But I said, oh my God. And there were some things, Lisa, that I'm not embarrassed, because we were dysfunctional, in my Catholic beliefs. Our grandmother and my mother believed in witchcraft, If you lost somebody, you're gonna bring it with witchcraft, like write their names or something, freeze it, or you want to have someone separate. So all these beliefs, right? Growing up, like go reading tarot cards, right? I remember being 9 years old with my aunties going to the lady who can see your future. So this was part of my upbringing. Now,
Wow.
I'm sharing that with my boyfriend and husband. Oh, he goes, that's not of God. That you don't. That's not. So he would hear me, and he would He never forced me though. He never forced the gospel upon me. That he would try to model, and he would say that's not what is being done. Very delicate. My mother-in-law would try to invite me to church when we were dating. I think we went once, and I was like, I felt so like, oh, this is so strict. Everyone's looking at me. I see all the sisters, wear like skirts. They don't wear makeup. Back in the 80s, it was the 80s. And I was like, this is like too much restriction, right?
Right. And you had that in the past almost by being forced
to.
Right. So that probably, was that some of your thinking of going to a religious place is kind of,
you have to be like pious and you have to be perfect. That was my belief of being a Christian. There's no room for imperfection. And I
when it's so like God's love and the freedom he offers us, it's anything, it's so different from what
But I was raised that God will punish you if you do this. We would married, separate, but we'll see each other weekends. Figure that one out.
So then you had a son.
It was until, so we cannot do this. We cannot be a wicked family, right?
And again, there's just, like you're saying, there were different strands of mess. And sometimes we think our mess is normal because it's all we know. But there can be another option.
Yeah,
not like that. But
you are in that, because that's all you know,
right?
And you think it's normal, and it's not.
God offers that we can either choose our way or God's way, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. And so many times Cristina was doing her way.
Yeah,
everything was her way, and a lot of survival, things to get. But I got to tell you, I think back now, Steve Jobs says when you have lived life, right? He said this before he passed away, and you can only connect the dots after you have lived life, experienced. And every incident experience, when you connect them, it yields to a path where you are. And you say, oh, that's what that happened. Oh, this is why when God had orchestrated, this is why I met this person. I'm connecting the dots, and I'm seeing my husband was supposed to be in my life. And because he kept me always, he would speak about the word to me, and he would, we would pray before, dinner. He prays every night. He's like a model. He pray every night. He gets on his knees. That's what Mom told me. So going back, I'm married. I have 3 beautiful children. AJ, who's 26 now. My girls are 20, so they're 6 years apart.
And you have twins.
And
so how
twins.
fun is
that? God is amazing, because after we're together, we have Asia with 6 years. I couldn't get pregnant, so I have I suffer from my thyroid disease, hyperthyroidism, and I will go to a doctor and say, it's your thyroid. It's your thyroid. You can't get pregnant. So then I resented. I was resentful to God, because this one's getting pregnant, and look at judging. Look at her life. She's like being judged, right? She doesn't deserve to be pregnant. This one, and here I am, like, why not me? And one day I just said, Lord, it was like, I know it's in your time. So I stopped taking my medication. I just need Torpine. And because I was so worried, so fixated to be pregnant, it was not happening, because it was not God's timing, right? Now I know that. One day, 3 months later, maybe I'm pregnant.
Oh my goodness.
I am pregnant. And my coworker said, look how God is so good. You lost, 2 brothers. Now you have twins.
Oh.
You were looking to have a child for 2 years after AJ was born. And he gave you 2 at once.
Wow.
And I'm like, he's amazing, because, he did it the way it was meant to be. And I had twins. I always said, when I get married, when I have my family, I want my partner, my husband, to be with me until the last day of our lives. The death do us apart. Because I don't want to have a stepfather for my children. That was like always embedded in me. Because I don't want to go through I don't want my children to go what I went through. So I was like non-negotiable, like you cannot have no children. Sorry, you had divorce. I'm sorry.
And after you did have your son, you both did get back together.
Yes, we did.
And part of that was because of that. It was before children, where you were
Right.
weekends only.
Yeah, because only AJ, is born during that time. And it was a time I said, I don't want to be like my mother, right? Because even though we're married, but we're separated, right? And I remember when
We saw what that did.
I did
in your life.
It's like I'm repeating almost like a cycle.
But that happens. We see that. I'm sure you see that with students. We see that with family things that are from our parents or even grandparents.
Right.
It just cycles,
It's
right?
cycles. And I remember this week in family, there's a fallacy, believe you are family. We'll go to such a park. And it was like, rah, rah, have a family. But then we would go to different households. I started crying.
Oh, wow.
I started crying because this is not what I want. I cannot do this by myself. I need my husband. I need.
Oh,
And that's when I said, I cannot do this no more.
sometimes we have to literally butt our heads against the wall and be like, okay, I'm at the end of me.
That's it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I had prior to that, I was making plans to like leave the state, right? Really like out of mind, and I had a job line in DC, an apartment, and I had
Goodness, this could have been so different.
so different. Oh, which really you had made plans.
And he didn't know that you had made plans.
No,
to leave.
He knew I went for interview, but he didn't take me serious. Oh, it was like, oh, no, he was like, no, that's one of those things, but she doesn't do, right? And then he looked at me and I said, are you really leaving? And I says, yes, you were babysitting AJ for the interview I went like a month ago. Don't you remember? So that day,
You're like, we had this conversation. Oh, wow.
that day it was, but I had to ask God to please guide me to say it, because I was scared to go to DC. I was going, I guess like my will, but what I had to do to kind of like break through. And I said, God, if this is, the man's going to be with me and raise the children and raise AJ, please show me that he's the one, and let him be in my life. Allow him to be in my life. Allow him to be in my life. He said, do you want to try it one more time?
Wow.
And I said, yeah. And it says, let's do it for AJ. But we really would do it for us. I believe God had the answer. He was supposed to be in my life because he made worked.
Boy, the hand of God just in so many of these different ways. But you wouldn't say that you really had a relationship with God yet.
No.
Like your girls, COVID hits, and your girls, something happens with them.
So, right. So now we are, COVID, they're 16, 17.
We just like fast forwarded.
Yeah. Because you had, together, raising family.
And you guys are still together?
Still together, with normal, like, happy.
Yeah.
At times, normal. Sometimes we get upset. Okay, we're together, nothing. God bless him. He's a great man. So COVID hits, we are in lockdown. Now, mind you, I have been working long hours. I'm always like working, putting like 13, 14 hours a day. For the first time ever, I'm like a homestay mom, right?
Wow.
And working. So even COVID, I lost aunties and cousins to COVID. But personally, for me, it was a blessing. And I said blessings because it's when I found Jesus. And I'll tell you why. So the girls were...
and what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's deep. I got to know his love. And I got to know that I wasn't the person that God has set me to be as a woman following Jesus.
And how did you even consider Jesus? Because you're home, but you said your girls have a big part.
They do.
In this.
So they're in the meantime, in the room, they go into this Zoom meetings. They partner with different. They used to go to this little church, which they found through college students in different states.
Oh,
and I would go in trying to listen because, I'm monitoring who they're talking to, right? Thinking like my dad. You cannot have a boyfriend until you're like 30, right? Who are these?
and you're online.
Who are these folks in there? Some aunt as a mom.
It is so different now because a lot of our Gen Z, our children do connect with people online.
Mobile.
And yes,
Mobily.
and so your girls are connecting online with people, you're listening in and
So there was one time, and that's how she she managed to find the How to Life. You know, there was also and some of the folks, some of the
Which
friends,
is a ministry my son began.
Yes,
with
the
young
Jordan.
people. So
there was one
encourage young people.
little church. Some of the same Jesus man, some of the same faces there in the other. There's some, so they were like following each other. Oh, he's I saw him or her in the other. So there's a little something going on here. I seen them now, reading the Bible.
Wow.
And so, what are you doing so late at night? And I'm like, oh, what the? What are you doing?
We always think the worst
What
thing.
are you doing? I'm going around. No, as they're learning and they're talking with themselves, they're talking, you know, and they're participating on this, you know, Instagram Zoom meetings. The girls became more, what's the word I want to use? They were calling out the things that I was not doing.
Oh, do I want to
And
ask
that was
what that
ouch.
is?
And that was an ouch because remember, I'm a school leader, right? So sometimes at work, they see you as a leader, you know, you're the boss, and the boss is always right. People don't want to
Right.
challenge you sometimes.
Right.
But I remember one day, she said, "Oh my gosh, Mama, you know that word you use, you cannot use, you know, like I would say, I will cousin, oh my God, I don't go this, and she's you cannot use." You try to reframe potty words, you know, like, oh, this isn't that, right? And it was, oh my goodness, you call every word I say. So it was coming like, I thought I had like the Bible police were in front of me, like calling out like certain things, and I think because she was already in the Word, you know, with listening and praying, and I remember one day, I was like, I was so upset at her. She and I felt because I felt convicted. The Holy Spirit had used her. I remember she said to me, "You know, Mama, I'm talking to my mom in Florida, and she comes around, and she's like, I see a shadow, and when I hang up, she goes, you're gossiping. You."
Nothing like a child to call us out. Well, but you know what? They speak truth because they know who
But
we
no one
are.
has called me, Lisa, a gossiper in my life. And then I felt shame.
Wow.
Because for my daughter, I was his mom, right? She
And
knew
those voices matter more than all the voices.
than my husband, than my coworkers, than my mom,
Wow.
my children, to see me that I'm not the woman that I was presented to be.
Wow.
And when she calls me, Mama, that's so wrong.
Wow.
And then she started saying things that were for a 17-year-old. I think she was 16, 17. And I turn around and be defensive and say, oh, I said, what is this little 16, 17-year-old girl trying to teach me? Trying to be defensive and defensive. And she goes, Ma, it's not the 16, 17-year-old girl speaking. This is the Spirit talking to me.
So what had happened to your girls? Like, why had they changed, and why were they like that?
Because they already were with other Gen Z.
Right.
They were going already talking, and
People who chose to follow Jesus.
Right. People who chose to follow Jesus. She still, okay, my mom is not following Jesus.
Wow.
And it was like black and white.
Wow.
So, you know, when we talk about it, we talk, and she said, I wanted for you to know him. I don't want you to be lost.
Wow.
And if you're sent to evangelize and to talk to people who don't know Jesus, right? Like I did not know him all my life, right? I'm her dad and mom. Like I'm her, you know, her core. So I remember one of them was very persistent, and I remember one time. I mean, at least I'm telling you, it was like at the table during the COVID. We got to eat it and pray. They will need prayer. You know, oh my gosh, I was like, they know the word. And I was impressed of how the transformation in them, like they were changing my household. They would change my household.
Wow.
We break bread, and it was this love. And they go, and one time they invited for a Bible study. We were in the book of Esther. You know,
Yeah.
So I was reading, I was getting, and it was so much fun talking and you know, just trying to like understand the word. And by this time, that rebellious, I felt convicted shame. I started seeing I have to change. She says, Mama, I need you to really know what you're doing. And to see your daughter in tears that, that she wants to like, help you, like show you like pushing. You don't want that. You don't want to disappoint your children, right? And I remember she will come on. Our father said to Amber, I know your mother for 30, at that time, 32 years. That's not you're going to get your mom. You're going to preach the word. You're going to be more like, do it with love. Point it out with love. And she started to change her strategy.
Wow.
More compassionate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, I've been trying to do it all these years and never forced her. I never, not that she was forced, but it was her approach.
And you had that forcing through your life.
my
Did
life,
not, and that pushed you more to doing Christina's way instead of looking at any other way. Right.
So it was the approach, but it was her love for me to reach the Lord, and nothing for a daughter who, it would be the other way around, mother to a son, a daughter. And I remember one time, so I started listening. Her approach changed. I started listening more because I knew it came from a place of love, not was judgmental.
Right.
Once I figured that out,
because that was kind of a trigger for you anyway, that judgmental.
yeah. So once I figured, okay, no, she's doing it for love, and so one of them tells me, Mom, there's a retreat in Connecticut.
They're like, this one's close.
Okay, this is close. There's no excuse.
And this is a retreat with other young people who follow Jesus.
Other young people was the first one they ever were in the new retreat in person. Yeah. By now they know some of the friends, and by now I'm seeing the change. They want to grow, in knowing the word. They want to, have a community, and I'm buying in. I went to that retreat. That's where I met you, Lisa. You were one of the moms. Your mom there. And
we're on the older end because this is all Gen Z young.
Yeah, Gen Z. And I got to tell you, when I saw the children, young adults, 16 to 24, praising, singing, and I got so emotional. I said, I want this for my daughters, and I want to be part of this, supporting my girls and the youth. And I even ended up also speaking to the youth that day. Remember the last day of my experience. And from pushing and, being upset with them and I don't want to hear it. This is how I am. The gossip thing really hit me until I realized, Lisa, when my mom would call, she wouldn't be gossip. I didn't know that was gossip because I grew up my life. So when she pulls it out, now that it transformed. I said, Ma, I would, deflect. So she helped me when calling it out.
Our children can be a mirror.
Yes. Right. And that was a whole shift. So when I started seeing and I started reading, and then I said to myself, you know what? I want to join a local church. All 5 of us got baptized about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
So I do have a question, hearing all this. When your girls were talking with you and things, did you ever feel like, I don't know Latino culture, but I think any parent a lot of times would be like, hey, wait a minute, I'm the parent here. Who are you to say?
Absolutely.
Did you ever feel that way?
Yes, I did.
Like you're talking about some of you didn't want to hear that, but that's some of kind of you resisted that anyway in your life of being told what to do because of different things. But how did you, was that kind of like, hey, you're the kid, I'm the parent. Sure,
That's when we were butting heads because, like I told her, who are you, 16-year-old little girl, telling me? Telling me how I'm supposed to behave. And I remember, I'll never forget, I told her, well, maybe I'm not a good Christian. I'm not the Christian you want me to be. So I was throwing those certain terms, I see you talking, this and gossip,
throwing things back. Yeah,
right. So I was I felt, convicted. So as a rebuttal, I said, who? And then she said, well, this 16, 17-year-old girl, is just calling out things that you need to hear. And I tell her she had the courage to, she really put the mirror and see the one who pointed out the things that I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
And she did it because she loved me.
Yeah.
And I had to step back because I felt shameful that I was doing these things. So now my belief is now that you need to do better. So when my daughters, the ones who kind of taught me about by modeling it was by example. Right? Because they were not born in a Christian house. So my husband's a Christian, but we would not go to, a Christian church. Even though I was,
It wasn't
it wasn't consistent.
right.
I was, Lisa, through all those years, I was looking for Jesus. Because I'm her mom, right? I'm just a return there. Sometimes you have to humble yourself. And at one point, I realized that it wasn't her
Right.
confronting me.
Right.
It was the Holy
And
Spirit.
she loved her mom, and they had hope, and you didn't. And they were growing deeper all the time with this, and you saw them, and they were saying things to you lovingly, but also concerned. And you wanted that hope and that relationship with Jesus is that transforms everything. So all these years of going Christina's way, and then there's God's way, and your daughters began living that out in front of you, which is just beautiful.
It is, and I always tell them, oh my gosh, I said, why didn't I got to know Jesus when I was in your age? Because when I see them, the young lady that they are, they have their heart for Jesus, and everything they do, it trickles into the work life. It trickles into their friendship life. Like try to follow what Jesus would do in the situation, right? I wish I had that as a young person, right? But God had a timing. I had to go through all these things that my children had to bring me. They're the path.
Yes.
And I also think as a mother, like my mom, I had suffered a lot of losses, right? If we would have done this, Jesus' way, right? Not our way.
Right.
We would have perhaps saved a lot of heartache and suffering. You're stubborn and you think you could do it yourself, right? And do things of the world, right? It's not gonna,
Yeah. And you almost didn't have, that's a way to go when you grew up with uncertainty and certain things. And then you wanted certainty. So you depend on yourself, but we can't do it all.
We're not do.
Yeah. We get to the end of it
Without God, right?
Okay, so Cristina, we've been talking, but I wanted to bring your girls in. Yay. Let me see if I can remember. Okay, we have Jade and Amber, your twin girls, and let me see, Jade. No, I didn't. Wait, I can't see that. You got to pull your hair back. Okay, Jade. Birth arts. They have Liz. I know this. I should have said pull the hair back, but Jade and Amber. So sorry. I really should know that, but. Different things about you all, but I've so appreciated your joy for Jesus, the hope he gives you, knowing him and having that relationship. Then your mom, and I love how you're kind of like calling her out. Yeah. Like, mom, that's gossip, or mom, that's, you shouldn't be talking like that. And you were saying it from a place of love because you're her daughters. But then I asked her, well, were you kind of like, well, you're the kid on the parent. And honestly, we should be open to hearing from anybody who's a mirror, because that can be that little nugget of truth. Like, mom, why did you respond that way? Or, dad, you found this relationship with Jesus, where I do want to jump in real quick that even with that sin, we want to have that relationship with Jesus, with God, but we can't get that sin only God can get rid of that. And so, when we talk about even Easter, and you said you used to go to church for Easter, growing up, and that one of the only times you went, but when Jesus died on the cross and just the blood of Jesus, he was the last sacrifice. The Old Testament is full of all these sacrifices, and Jesus being the last sacrifice, and his blood able to get rid of the sin, our junk, our my way. And then we can choose to have that relationship with just saying, God, please, I'm sorry. I want to change from going my way to your way. And then we can have that relationship with him. He can clean our hearts, and we can have that. So you guys had that going on.
Yeah.
Were you like talking with each other, or just like saying things about, mom, this, or just kind of speaking out on who'd you say would argue with you more, Amber? That's why she's sitting a little further away. Yeah, I'm here in the middle. She's separating Amber. Figured to give a little buff. No, but were you praying for your mom individually together? Like, what was going on with you guys like during that time?
Wow. So well, little backstory. I came to know the Lord personally in 2020. And for that time during the pandemic where I was really just to myself, I had that one-on-one like time with the Lord where I can really like know who he is and like what that means for me. And as I'm reading like scripture, I'm reading the New Testament, I'm reading the Gospels, it's like a love letter that I'm just like being undone for the first time. Wow. And seeing how it would like take apart and reconstruct my life, my worldview, and how I'd see things, it then made me consider like, how can this affect my family? Like I'm seeing the ways that I've been healed in my thinking patterns. How can that, transfer to my mom? Because when I'm seeing it like, I love my mom. I'm looking at her, and a lot of things that like I was struggling with could be passed down or like I grew up with. So I'm like, how can I, like plant these seeds and hopefully see like the freedom and like being like the redemption in your life. And for a long time, like I held a burden that was like a heavy weight on my chest. I was like, I want to see my parents like in love with Jesus, but like I want them to feel his love and more than anything. And
because you felt
I felt it, such freedom and experiencing that with like in the confinement of your own house, like you really can't go out. You had like these limits, like you want to tell everyone. So who's the first person you can tell when you're not in this like ministry setting? You're not even plugged into a church. It was your family. And so I just felt conflicted a lot of the times. And I had conversations with the Lord where I would be in tears. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I feel like alone. I don't know, like I had this like idea that I had to convert her, but then I had to realize like throughout time, like it's really like trusting. It's like a battle that's like only won by the Lord. Like it's nothing that I can truly say, but it's like the seeds that I can plant in that moment and pray that like the watering will take place. And so we'd have conversations at night. I sometimes come to her like crying, and she'd be like, okay, like what's going on? I'm like, Mom, like you understand? And so I feel like now growing up, I think 15 at the time, there's different approaches I have now when I want people to know the love of the Lord. Like I'm not really crying in their face. Sometimes, maybe, yeah. But like
saying that's gossip. No.
gossip, yeah. So my approach is different.
Calling her. But that comment really hit home with you.
Oh, it did.
That was a big, I don't know who said the gossip line.
And I was like,
That was yeah, just like, I'm not owning that one.
yeah.
But that really, even though that was very hard, right?
It's like, I can't be that person that my daughter's seeing.
Yeah.
I have to be better than that.
Yeah.
Because deep inside my heart, I knew it was gossip.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about it, and I learned if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. Don't share it. I mean, it's just not so inappropriate.
It was, and honestly, sometimes we say things and, it is truth and it might sting, but it can be very impacting in someone's life too. So, wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of conversations. It was even Jade, as she started getting into it not too long after I did, we'd have conversations. We'd do prayer. Like we'd be praying every time before we go to bed. We'd pray like 45 minutes and we're like praying for like literally like, we were prayer warriors. Like it was crazy.
Jade, you were talking a little bit about what changed with your mom.
Yeah. So when it comes to praying for your family, like I was praying for my mom, and like a new like born again Christian, you pray, you really do hope like, Lord, like I like impact my family, like save my family, but you don't really understand or comprehend the outcome. And when Jesus says like, I have plans for you that you can't even like imagine, like plans to prosper you and to give you hope for a future. So when I was praying the simple prayer of like, Lord, like save my mom, I didn't know like the outcome of my mom's yes to Jesus would be like her health getting better, her personality totally shift from like loving to gossip to like now being like, let me speak life into this person. And like, and then like her first instinct being prayer. Her first instinct being prayer, because someone said this, some person, some wise woman of God, she was like, gossip is actually like the instinct that you actually want to pray for them, but you don't know how to pray for them, so you just instantly go to gossip. So gossip is a form of like, you know what, you're actually meant to intercede for that person. And so seeing my mom like completely transform 180, there's like total like when God talks about like the health of his flock, like everything about you spiritually, your mind, your heart, your soul changes.
Wow.
So, and I saw that in my mom, and that's how I knew. I'm like, Jesus, thank you. It wasn't like God does work in an instant, but I think he really showed the process of healing. Like it did take a couple years, you know, to grow, but the Lord does
Goes overnight.
nothing goes overnight.
It's time.
But like the Lord did answer that prayer, and
Wow.
complete 180 is just. I gotta praise. This reminds me of the verse like Galatians 6:9. Do not be weary of doing what is good, because in due time you'll reap a harvest if you do not give up. And if there's anything we can encourage anyone who's in the same situation is do not give up, because even when you feel like it's not possible or it's unattainable, we were like completely mind blown with how it impacted our family in different ways.
Wow.
Not just with our mom, but then how it like trickled into our dad and our brother, and now finding a church community and serving our local church. So do not give up. Do not grow weary, because the harvest is like ripe and it's ready and it's there. It's not like it's there.
Wow. Yeah. The blessings, you know, that you live every day, you know, and I always, my question is, what would Jesus do in this situation, right? When you are caught in like in a crossroad, and you always think of him, right? Would he help this person? Will he gossip about this person, right? Or not?
I remember like going from my perspective, it was like when you look at your parent, you think like, oh, there's not really much you can do. Like they're so much older than you. You have this. They're the parents. They're the parent. Like, you know, you don't really think like, oh, gossiping is just what we grew up with. It's like, it's our culture. It's like, you know, it's something that we do. You never really look at it. And this didn't happen until I read the Bible. Like when I actually started like getting into the word, and I was like so in love, like that spiritual fervor. The first time you're reading your scripture, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I had a taste for that, like that gossip and this other things in my life. You start to have like this taste aversion, and I remember just like telling my mom like, you know, you're 15 and like you don't know how to really approach it, but you know sometimes it was like straight up like calling my mom out, but it really is what the work of the Lord did. Like it took time. Like I really had to know that like, okay, this is something that the Lord has to do himself. Like I can preach and I can call my mom out, but like we were really planting seeds at that moment. I knew deep down like, okay, my prayer was, Lord, like please reach my mom in ways that I know I can't reach, that only the Lord can.
And we can't change a heart. Only God can change a heart. No one can change my heart.
Right.
God can only touch my heart.
And I was just like, you know, I was just planting seeds at that time. But I can truly say like having your mom come to the Lord. Like my mom, she knew Jesus. Like, you know, the trend of like know of Jesus, but then know Jesus. Like it's completely different. And it does change like my walk as a Christian, because having my mom on board, like it really like if she didn't really have a relationship with Jesus on her own, we would have never went to the retreat that House Life had.
She was talking about that, right?
And from there, like I've met like friends who are like lifetime friends.
And around the world.
And around the world. Like
We're also followers of Jesus.
yeah, also allergy. I would have never, guys.
I would have only said.
But I have a very serious philosophical question.
Yeah.
If you're talking with your twin, is it gossip? No,
Just go do out there out. It's just I've seen those jokes where it's like your mom gossiping in the form of a prayer request.
right.
Eric Davis.
Right. So when you're like, hey, we need to pray for so and so. But we do need to be careful with things like that, because are we really, like we can pray, but we don't have to let it, you know, let other people's stuff that, you know, the Bible even talks about like a tasty morsel.
Yeah.
And, you know, we need to be careful about sharing those tasty morsels in life. But yeah, wow. Any other thoughts of like, so you were praying for your mom, you said your parents, you're together and COVID in your apartment and all. But so then she begins to listen a little bit.
And so I think honestly, for anyone who is in the same situation as we were, like where you start off with this like love for the Lord and you want to share it with your parents and it feels like overwhelming. I think honestly, like,
And they don't know.
no, I don't relationship. I think creating space for those conversations, like a lot of what our conversation, like transformative conversations that we've had, were at the dinner table. It's like the only time we could really come together. The dinner table, we just talk about like what we learned from the, like honestly it would just be me and Jade sometimes, and we'll just talk about it in a way where they're overhearing. They really had it towards them to listen. So like just the sparking curiosity.
Your mom mentioned that at that dinner. That was significant to her.
It was like honestly the only time, and I feel like I'm so grateful for something as simple as eating together. Like how Jesus was in his ministry, like examining his people. It's just I think that's like the first step. I encourage people, like, get a meal, like make coffee, like create the time. And for me personally, it's like asking the Lord, even in myself, like in my journey with the Lord, is like healing those wounds of like bitterness. And we are talking about this earlier, like pettiness is not a fruit of the spirit. Do not be petty when we're having like when it's not reaching or it's not communicating. If I'm not finding the right words, maybe I should evaluate myself and realize, you know what, maybe the calling out is not exactly what I need to do. And I can
But we're always like too. And
yeah,
you're growing at that point too.
exactly. Like, right. We're so young when we started, 15. There's so much that I learned along the way. And I think of like just being the tree that bears the fruit. Like just by your actions, you can tell if you look at that tree, it's bearing good fruit. And you know, just by the way that I conduct my speech, like, you know, like the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So making sure that my root is still in Jesus and it's not in anything else that can cloud it, you know, that I'm speaking from a place of love and first you here. So
Wow.
that is part like so like knowing when to really like, okay, now like how can I really speak what I want to share, like without it coming like a judging thing, right? And when can I stop speaking? When should I be silent too? Because you know, fools are quick to speak and not quick to listen. So you guys take a moment of pausing and hearing what my mom has to say. Like it does take that reflection throughout the process.
Because people don't respond to like a finger in their face. And any other final thoughts for someone who's like, I really want my mom or dad to know Jesus the way I do? Anything you would share?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I feel like we've talked about a lot of them.
And a huge thing, you prayed together. You were in God's word, you had conversations. And I do love that because I do feel like the everyday conversations, Jesus modeled that, just like you said in the Bible. I always like looking at what did Jesus do? But in the busyness of life, I think it takes more intention to sit down and have those conversations, the family dinners, the getting together with a friend for coffee or a meal. And I love that too. That's why I told your mom, this is like being in my house. I would have something on the table for you guys. You guys have a water too. So, but just because it is great to like sit and just have those conversations and about life and all the things. So I'm just so thankful for you all. I'm thankful for you and just even choosing Jesus and in the middle, and you guys being bold enough and not saying we're the kid, because some parents can come down like, hey, I'm the parent, you know, and like my parent told me, I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to tell the next generation, and is that really the way these relationships are supposed to be, you know? So but
Lisa, something that I from a parent perspective, they were consistent. They were constantly like modeling, like when they were talking, and even the way of presenting themselves with other friends. I saw a shift also of you know. I also thought were good, kind girls, but there was something special about that, and having that consistency and that role model, I end up like applying those things. People at work started saying, "You're different." Because my behavior, even with my coworkers, was different.
wow.
So when I started hearing that, I said, Lord, you are molding me. When teachers come to me and say, I need to talk to you. After your name's going to take 2 days out, we're going to be, when they come to say, Ms. V, my husband, I think he has a girlfriend. Like they come to like personal, it's a please
About personal
personal.
things. Wow.
Trust me.
You're a safe space.
A safe space. So they see something.
And can you imagine if you still were gossiping about
my
something?
gosh. Imagine what
That people don't, right? Oh my
So
goodness.
when you gain that trust and they see you,
Yeah.
you know, that you're different
Yeah.
and they trust you, it made like my work environment even more like so like familiar, like family.
Yeah. And you've become a safe space to people that you didn't even have growing up, which is amazing. And then it kind of comes full circle back to your grandma was like, she's going to know, had that relationship with God someday. And wow,
My father's grandma.
that's just amazing.
She's like,
And I just, friend, if you are wanting this relationship with Jesus today, I pray that you see how knowing God through his son Jesus transforms lives. And he's changed my life, been my anchor, and the lives of young adult children, teenagers, and parents and families. And then it spreads on to coworkers and all. And if you want that relationship, you can talk with him right now and just talk about saying, God, I'm tired of going my way. I want to choose your way. And I want to I'm sorry for that sin, that choosing my stuff. And I want to have a relationship with you. Will you clean me and come and live in my life? I want to follow you, Jesus. And I pray that peace for you and that freedom for you today, my friends. So thank you for joining us today. And I hope you join us next time on Thrive in the Mess.